I'm the true heir of a wealthy family, lost since childhood. When I was finally found and brought home, there was already a fake young master who had taken my place. The moment he saw me, his eyes turned red. Brother, I won't fight you for Mum, Dad, and our sister. Could you not send me away? In an instant, everyone's gaze towards me changed. I calmly rubbed my fingers and said, "Who said I wanted to fight you for them? You think they're pound notes that everyone likes?" I turned to look at those blind, biased parents. "Give me £100,000 to sever our family ties. In this life, I only recognize money, not people." Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. I didn't even leave a whole body when I died. On the winding country road, I was run over repeatedly by a lorry until only a layer of foul-smelling blood and mud remained on the ground. It wasn't until the caretaker at the stray dog shelter couldn't reach me that they called the police. The police investigated for 2 days but found nothing. Under pressure from Mark Gascoigne, they hastily concluded it was a traffic accident. After all, I was just an ordinary delivery driver, while Mark Gascoigne was the untouchable heir to the Gascoigne Group. "Dad, Mum, we can't bring back the dead. From now on, I'll be filial to you on behalf of my brother as well." After my death, Mark knelt before our parents with red-rimmed eyes. My mother, with a hint of sorrow still in her eyes, quickly helped him up. "Mark, what are you doing? You didn't hurt your knees, did you?" Her faint grief quickly dissipated, her heart and eyes full of nothing but her false son. My father, however, cast a disgusted glance at the urn of remains that the coroner had managed to gather, and snorted coldly. "It's better that he's dead. What an embarrassment. I'll pretend I never had this son." "Brother!" A coquettish cry came from outside the door as Maria Gascoigne flew into Mark's arms like a swallow returning to its nest. She turned her head and complained to our parents. "Were you talking about Mark? That country bumpkin deserved to die. He's the only brother I recognize." Mark ruffled her hair, his smile indulgent. "Maria, don't be naughty." The group laughed and joked, looking to anyone like a happy, perfect family. My soul floated in mid-air, watching the scene before me expressionlessly. Who would have known that I was the true young master of the Gascoigne family? They say the debt of nurture is greater than the debt of nature. The reverse is also true. When I was found and brought back, the family already had a fake young master to replace me. "Kevin, we've raised Mark as our own son. You two should get along well from now on." On my first day home, my mother shielded Mark behind her and sternly laid down the rules for me. "All right," I responded meekly, my heart sour at my birth mother's attitude. At that time, I didn't understand that the drama of true and false heirs wasn't important. People's hearts are naturally biased. Mark was the precious son they had raised at their knee for over 20 years. How could I, a crude country boy, compare? It wasn't until I was kicked out of the family that I finally understood and gave up, just wanting to live well on my own, no longer yearning for family affection. But even then, Mark didn't let me go. I looked up to see Mark sitting high on the sofa, ordering his subordinates to feed my remains to the dogs. Deal with the driver. Also, find a priest. Isn't there some ritual to prevent someone from ever being reincarnated? Make it grand. The grander the better. When my parents learned that Mark had arranged a memorial service for me, they praised him again for his kindness. I slowly closed my eyes amidst the chanting. Never to be reincarnated? If that were true, it wouldn't be so bad. I would surely become an evil spirit and send you all to hell with me. But when I opened my eyes again, I had somehow been reborn to the day I was brought back home. "Brother, I won't fight you for Dad, Mum, and sister. Can you not drive me away?" Mark pleaded, his face pale and effeminate. The surging hatred in my heart was forcefully suppressed once again. After years of struggling to survive out there, I was no longer that inarticulate, reticent young lad. "Who wants to fight you for them? You think they're pound notes that everyone likes?" I turned to face those blind, biased parents. "Give me £100,000 to sever our parent-child relationship." How much are parents worth? Mark would surely jump at the chance to play the filial son. "How dare you speak to your parents like that?" My father slammed his fist on the table, veins bulging on his forehead. He had always been the unquestioned authority in our home. Until today, no one had dared to defy him. I lounged casually on the sofa, staring directly at the man who was now hopping mad. In my previous life, I would have tiptoed around them cautiously. But now, what was the point of trying to please them? Well, I never had parents to teach me manners. I spent over a decade scraping by in an orphanage, where I learned that money is all that matters. I flashed a sardonic smile and turned to Mark Gascoigne. Surely the young master of the Gascoigne family, raised in the lap of luxury, can spare £100,000? Why don't you give me that money, and I'll leave right away? I lowered my gaze. 10 quid is enough for my daily expenses. 100 grand? That's enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life, without having to fight stray dogs for scraps. My mother's expression changed instantly upon hearing this, from barely concealed anger to sympathy. The look she cast at Mark now held a hint of reproach. After all, I had come from her womb and had only just been found. She felt at least a little guilty. "Kevin, that's not what Mark meant. You're both Gascoigne children," she said. My father's chest heaved with anger, but he didn't explode again. He glanced sidelong at Mark, his voice low. "Have the housekeeper prepare the south-facing room on the second floor. And find an etiquette tutor. This uncouth behavior is unacceptable." That room on the second floor had the best lighting and was close to the study. Mark had hinted several times that he wanted it, but had always been refused. Was my father warning Mark and establishing my authority? I smirked, not missing the hidden hatred in Mark's eyes. This was just the beginning. The housekeeper moved quickly. The room was spotless, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lush back garden. A truly splendid view. As I sank into the soft, large bed, my mind flashed through the events since my rebirth. Of course, I would claim the money that was rightfully mine, but not now. For the Gascoigne group, £100,000 was far too cheap. But people can be such masochists. In my previous life, after Mark said those things, I timidly explained that I wouldn't drive him out, but he misinterpreted it as me looking down on him as an adopted son. To comfort Mark, my mother arranged for me to live with the servants, under the guise of getting familiar with the household environment. As for my father, he favored whichever son was more useful to him. Today's show of support for me was merely because Mark had challenged his authority. How would it look if his newly found biological son moved out right away? Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Mark holding a set of clothes, wearing a fake smile. "Brother, these are the Listen College uniforms." He lowered his eyes guiltily. "Earlier, I didn't mean what I said. I was just scared and spoke without thinking. Can you forgive me?" At the end of the corridor, a servant was polishing a vase, ears perked up, sneaking glances in our direction. I took the clothes, my expression caught between a smile and a sneer. "You weren't serious?" "Of course not." "Well, unfortunately, I was." The door slammed shut, leaving the pretentious Mark outside. Back in the room, I laid out the clothes and held them up against myself. As expected, they were at least 2 sizes too small. Listen was an elite school. Its students were either from wealthy and powerful families or academically brilliant students from ordinary backgrounds destined for Oxford or Cambridge. Each student's uniform was tailored to fit. In this world, clothes make the man, and one's uniform is one's face. In my previous life, I went to Listen College wearing ill-fitting uniforms and, unsurprisingly, became a target for bullying. Even when I reported it to my parents, they brushed it off lightly. "Useless child. It's your own fault for not being thorough. How can you blame Mark for that?" I carelessly tossed the uniform aside and pulled out a faded t-shirt from my bag. "You want to save face?" The Gascoigne family's reputation was made to be trampled on. The next day, my parents left early for the office, and Mark took the family car to school. This scene of me oversleeping and being late on my first day of school was identical to my previous life. I glanced at the cold, empty dining table, ate a few bites, then leisurely walked out onto the street and found a shared bicycle. The school gates were crowded with luxury cars. My faded t-shirt and shared bicycle stood out like a sore thumb. Where did this country bumpkin come from? I didn't hear about the school admitting any more poor kids. Aren't all the Oxbridge spots filled this year? Whispers surrounded me. I ignored them, parked the bicycle, and walked straight through the school gates. "Excuse me, please show your ID," said the security guard, his eyes roving up and down as he looked at me with obvious disdain. "I don't have one. Get out of here. This isn't the place for scammers like you. I've seen plenty of your type." "Shut up," a stern voice rang out from afar. A middle-aged man rushed over, wiping the imaginary sweat from his brow with an embarrassed look. "You must be Kevin Gascoigne? Mr. Gascoigne said you'd be transferring to our school today. This way, please." He turned and glared at the frightened security guard. "You're fired." The guard tried to say something, but someone with more sense had already dragged him away. "And you are?" I asked. "Edmund Yardley. I'm the deputy headmaster of Lisson College. You can call me Uncle Edmund," I said with a smile. "Ah, yes, I'll accept that. Kevin, why have you come dressed like this?" Edmund Yardley looked at my outfit with concern. I wiped the expression from my face. The clothes prepared for me at home were 2 sizes too small. "I'll arrange for someone to get you a change immediately. Let's wait until after school. These are comfortable." I brushed off the topic lightly. This old fox didn't want to make a big deal of it, but I was determined to bring it out into the open. Edmund Yardley's brow furrowed briefly before smoothing out again. Either way, it was a dispute between us Gascoigne brothers, and he knew better than to interfere. Besides, my attitude made it clear that I wasn't to be trifled with. "Uncle Edmund, if you could just tell me where my classroom is, I can find my own way." I ignored the stares around me as I looked at the vast campus, my thoughts churning. Some debts needed to be settled one by one. Edmund Yardley was silent for a moment before nodding and telling me the exact location of Class 8. Class 8 was known as the Young Gentleman's Class. As the name suggests, it was where underachieving rich kids went to get their gilt-edged education. As the bottom-ranked, overlooked Gascoigne in my previous life, I'd been no stranger to the torment there. When we reached Class 8, there were still about 15 minutes before the lesson started. As the teacher led me in, the atmosphere in the class froze for a few seconds before erupting into chaos. Sneers mixed with mockery, and feelings of disgust surrounded me from all sides. The form teacher called for order several times before the class quietened down a bit. "Kevin, you can sit in the last row." There was an empty seat by the window in the back row. I walked over unhurriedly and sat down, looking up to listen to the lesson. As soon as the first period ended, trouble came looking for me. "Oi, you little scrounger. How did you worm your way into this school? The whole place stinks now that gutter trash like you is here." I shot back without hesitation. "The stink is from your mouth farting. Can't you smell it?" This guy was Peter Tench, one of Maria Gascoigne's admirers and Mark Gascoigne's #1 lackey. "UF-ARG." Peter Tench, enraged, reached out to grab my collar, but I caught his wrist and flung it aside forcefully. "You dare push me? You're just a freeloader. I'll destroy you." I narrowed my eyes, putting on the act of a stubborn underdog. "Don't you dare insult my parents." Peter Tench seemed even more convinced of his judgment, spewing profanities one after another, especially aimed at my parents and the Gascoigne family's ancestors. I suppressed a smile at the corner of my mouth. Just like in my previous life, Mark Gascoigne had hinted at school that I was just a poor relative staying with the Gascoigne family, which meant everyone at school felt they could step on me. Even when the news later spread that I was the true Gascoigne heir, who would care about the face of a fallen young master by then? "You son of A.B., gutter trash spawning more gutter trash." Peter Tench was about to continue his tirade when the bell for class rang. He glared at me fiercely, his face clearly saying, "You'll get what's coming to you later." I stopped the recording and sent the audio to my father. "Has the Gascoigne group gone bankrupt?" Time ticked by minute by minute. Before the class even ended, a bald man burst into the classroom, seething with anger. "Dad!" Peter Tench called out in confusion. Before he could stand up, the man had already swung a full-force slap across his face. "You little bastard! I'll beat you to death today." Peter's face quickly swelled up like a balloon, and he mumbled a barely audible "Dad." The man, still not satisfied, continued to slap Peter's face repeatedly. Eventually, when Peter's lips started bleeding, the man stopped. Panting heavily, he grabbed Peter by the hair and dragged him in front of me, forcing him to bow. "Mr. Gascoigne, this lad's got a filthy mouth, but I've taught him a lesson. Please, sir, in your generosity, let him off just this once." Whispers erupted around us, with countless surprised glances darting between Peter and me. I kept my eyes half closed, saying neither yes nor no. Sweat dripped down the man's temples as he gave Peter another hard smack. "Gone mute, have you? Apologize to Mr. Gascoigne." Peter's cheeks were swollen, his eyes filled with resentment, but more so with fear. "Sir, I'm sorry." Only then did I drop my cold demeanor. "Mr. Tench, you jest." Perhaps he was merely asked by a friend to say hello to me. The bald man hadn't finished exhaling when I added nonchalantly, "However, he did call my father an old tosser and me a son of a bitch. I'm afraid you'll have to explain that to my father yourself." The bald man's expression crumbled again as he bowed his head repeatedly. "Rest assured, I'll personally explain to Mr. Gascoigne. Your dad is Ralph Gascoigne?" Peter's eyes widened in disbelief, and the classroom filled with audible gasps. I didn't even look up. "Don't believe me? You can call him to confirm yourself." The form tutor arrived belatedly to mediate, escorting the bald man out and taking Peter to the infirmary, bustling about in a flurry. As the bell rang for break, more people gathered around my desk, their earlier mocking attitudes completely gone. "Kevin, are you really Mr. Gascoigne's son? How come Simon never mentioned you? I got lost when I was 3 and was only recently found." "Then what about Mark?" Someone sensed the whiff of gossip. I put on a magnanimous smile. "Although Mark is only 3 months younger than me, Mum and Dad said the Gascoignes have raised him for so many years. He's no different from their own son. I'll treat him like a brother too." Everyone exchanged knowing glances. In just one break, the news that Mark Gascoigne is adopted spread throughout the school. Family feuds and questions of legitimacy were the perfect seasoning for the otherwise dull school life. During the afternoon PE lesson, a girl aggressively blocked my path on the sports field. Maria Gascoigne. She attended the lower school at Lisson College and hadn't been able to return home yesterday due to a camping trip. If there was anyone who could be called Mark Gascoigne's lapdog, it would be Maria. "Kevin, you've been a country bumpkin for so long, and now you've latched onto the Gascoigne family. You're quite pleased with yourself, aren't you? There's only one young master in the Gascoigne family, and I only have one brother, Mark. What right do you have to call yourself a Gascoigne?" Maria lifted her chin, her once pretty features completely marred by arrogance. All that remained was a repulsive, vulgar ugliness. "What's wrong with being from the country? In your eyes, are country folk not good enough to be seen in public?" I looked at her coldly. "So what if they are? Dirty, smelly country folk should stay in the gutter where they belong, instead of offending my eyes." More and more people gathered around to watch the commotion. "The high-rises you live in were built by workers from the countryside. The lavish meals you eat were grown by country folk. How many generations back do we have to go before we find farmers in everyone's family tree? Our ancestors have always advocated education for all, regardless of wealth or status. In your eyes, are all those students who worked hard to get here not good enough either?" Maria's face turned red with anger as she stamped her foot. "Shut up." Lisson College had quite a few top students from poor backgrounds, and Maria's words had insulted them all. Many people began to look at Maria with hostility and disgust. Even she, dense as she was, realized I had trapped her, but she was too proud to even lower her head and apologize. It was only when a teacher, alerted by the commotion, came and reprimanded Maria that she was hurriedly led away. The tumultuous day finally came to an end. I picked up the school uniform Edmund had sent over and got into the Gascoigne family's private car to go home. As soon as I entered the house, a porcelain cup shattered next to my head. The porcelain scattered across the floor in pieces. My father's face was as dark as ink. "So you finally decided to come home?" Maria Gascoigne was nestled in my mother's arms, her eyes red from crying. It was obvious she had just finished tattling. "Dad, please calm down. Mark surely didn't mean it. Perhaps yesterday's argument was just too intense." Simon Gascoigne feigned consolation. "Brother, you should apologize to Mum and Dad. No matter how angry you were, you shouldn't have bullied Maria at school. What will others think of the Gascoigne family?" Mark chimed in. My mother joined in. "Maria is your sister. You should know better than to upset her. Mark is so considerate." What exactly did I do wrong? I raised an eyebrow, calmly surveying the room full of accusers. "How dare you talk back? You've caused so much trouble on your first day, and look at what you're wearing. Have you no shame?" My father, Ralph, slammed his hand on the table as he stood up, startling the servants in the corner. "I bought these clothes with money I earned from my part-time job. Why should I be ashamed of honestly earned money?" I scoffed. "Or are you suggesting that a crop top 2 sizes too small is more appropriate?" Mark's expression faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Brother, I apologize for my oversight with the clothes. I didn't know your size, so I prepared standard sizes. Didn't Headmaster Yardley mention changing clothes when he brought you in?" "He mentioned it as late as your prepared clothes," I replied, looking directly at Ralph Gascoigne. "The Gascoigne Group is bidding for a government project soon, isn't it? Yet you let Maria insult workers and farmers. How do you think that will look to the public? There are quite a few of Gascoigne's competitors at Lisson College." Hearing this, Maria looked up in panic. "Dad, I didn't mean it like that. I just. Ralph's expression shifted, finally settling on displeasure, but not directed at me. "It seems I've been too lenient with you. You think you can say anything. Go to your room and reflect on your behavior." Maria bit her lip, tears streaming down her face. She didn't dare argue as she got up and went upstairs crying. My father's gaze returned to me. He let out a cold snort but said nothing more. He cared about the Gascoigne Group. Rivalry between his sons? He welcomed it. Survival of the fittest, nothing unusual. I leisurely ate 2 large bowls of food in the somewhat tense atmosphere. Back in my room, my phone vibrated twice, showing that my father had transferred £10,000. The note read, "Clean yourself up. Don't embarrass the Gascoigne name." An idea struck me. I took out pen and paper, comparing my memories from my previous life, and wrote down the names of several stocks and futures. I calculated the combination for maximum returns and invested all the money. I had been wondering how to make my first pot of gold, and here it was, handed to me on a silver platter. Money offered freely shouldn't be refused. After a period of peace, Mark found me at school. "Brother, our group is doing an entrepreneurship project. I'd like to invite you to join." I puffed out my cheeks, hatred spreading through my heart. Here it comes. In my previous life, it was this entrepreneurship project that made me the laughingstock of both the Gascoigne family and the entire school. Mark had set up a financial trap, luring me in and causing the Gascoigne Group to lose a considerable sum of money. My father was so angry he slapped me in public, declaring that I was beyond help and that the Gascoigne Group would never be handed over to such a fool. It was only after that incident that I truly saw Mark's true colors. "Sure," I agreed with a smile. "Mark, is he really up for it? You're just too kind, dragging in someone who'll only hold us back." A bespectacled boy standing next to Mark made no effort to hide his contempt and distrust. "Don't say that. He's my brother," Mark replied. I couldn't be bothered to watch Kevin's act and turned to leave. The so-called entrepreneurship project was merely a topic for their business class. But the rich kids at Lisson had the capital and connections to put their entrepreneurial ideas into real practice. Mark was responsible for a small engineering bidding project. After a month or so of hard work with the team, we finally won the bid with a price lower than the market rate. When signing the contract initially, Mark had suggested that the client pay an additional safety deposit to ensure the quality of the project and workers' safety. I had gladly signed the contract. However, afterwards, the construction team delayed the project for various reasons, causing it to go significantly over budget. This, in turn, became ammunition for outsiders to attack the Gascoigne Group. In the end, my father had to step in to resolve the issue. "Brother, why don't you sign the contract? You've worked hard this month," Mark said with a kind smile. I snapped back to reality, looking at the contract before me, nearly identical to the one from my previous life. "Mark, this is clearly your achievement," someone nearby protested on his behalf. "He's my brother," Mark insisted once again. I took the pen, wrote down my name, and smiled meaningfully. "Then I'll gladly accept." It had been another busy few months. On the day our project successfully launched, my father specifically called Mark Gascoigne and me to the company. "I've heard from the team that your project has done quite well. Though it's still child's play, it's starting to shape up nicely," my father said with a tone of satisfaction. As he flipped through the project documents, he suddenly remembered something and turned to look at me. "Oh, by the way, I heard you let go of one of the construction team leaders?" Yes, he wasn't following orders. There was no point in keeping him on. I signed with a labor agency, and there are plenty of teams from neighboring towns actively seeking work, at lower rates too. I fiddled with the pen in my hand, not missing Mark's whitening knuckles as he clenched his fists. Riding on the Gascoigne Group's reputation, there was no shortage of people eager to curry favor. That team leader had indeed accepted gifts from Mark, but compared to the consequences of offending the Gascoigne Group, it was hardly worth mentioning. "Ha ha, that's my boy." My father's laughter boomed so loudly it could be heard 3 streets away. The people around us kept flattering him with comments like, "The apple doesn't fall far from the tree," and "The Gascoigne Group has a worthy successor." He was beaming with pride until his secretary came in to report that someone had requested a meeting. He patted my shoulder and left the office. Throughout all of this, Mark had been standing to the side like an outsider. As the crowd dispersed with my father, only Mark and I were left in the room. His gaze was cold and venomous, like a poisonous snake, no longer hiding his hatred. "Kevin, you're quite pleased with yourself, aren't you?" "I suppose I am," I replied with a smile, stepping around him. As I brushed past, I seemed to remember something casually. "Oh, Mark, I heard that you used to be called Simon Gascoigne?" Simon. When their own son went missing, giving an adopted child this name, the meaning was clear. Even his name was stolen from me. "Kevin." The malice and hatred in his eyes were about to overflow. I hadn't walked far when I heard the sound of things being smashed behind me. I left the company in high spirits, checking on the stocks I had previously bought. The market was a sea of green with pleasing returns. I selected a few more and invested all the money I had earned from the project. The feeling of money making money. Brilliant. Gossip spreads fastest on campus. After the success of the engineering project, many people caught wind of it and actively sought to befriend me. I graciously accepted. Everyone's out for their own interests. There's no point in being upset about it. During lunch break, I went downstairs to buy something. Just as I reached the stairwell, a figure came rushing up and collided with me. "Ah!" I instinctively wrapped my arm around her waist. The girl let out a soft cry, revealing a face as delicate as a water lily. Her lashes fluttered, her eyes filled with bashfulness. The moment I saw her face clearly, my pupils constricted, and I immediately withdrew my hand. "Ah!" The cry of surprise turned into one of pain as she fell to the ground, clutching her bottom and looking at me with tears in her eyes. "You!" "I'm sorry," my hand slipped. "Naomi Quincy." I'd recognize her anywhere, even if she were turned to ashes. After that day, Naomi stuck to me like glue. If she wasn't eagerly offering me homemade cakes, she was shyly bringing me water on the sports field. She was the daughter of a faculty member, having gotten into Listen College through connections. People around me joked about my good fortune. I neither agreed nor refused. Until one evening, as I was returning home after my usual workout, I heard a woman's cry for help from a small alley. "Help, no." The light was dim, and the alley was a dead end with 3 young men blocking the entrance. Naomi was trembling like a rabbit, curled up in the corner, with a melted cream cake beside her. When she saw me enter, her eyes lit up with hope. "Kevin, save me." The front of her blouse was half torn open, revealing the white lace underneath, with glimpses of smooth, pale curves. Combined with her disheveled hair and tear-stained eyes, she looked utterly pitiful. I walked into the alley. The thugs turned around with hostile expressions. Andy, the leader, a guy with dyed yellow hair, grinned maliciously. Well, if it isn't the little Romeo? Have you even grown your first chest hair yet, trying to play the hero?" I tilted my head, not looking at Naomi, but at the yellow-haired thug. "No, I was just wondering if you needed an extra person. Can I join in?" The alleyway was eerily quiet. The thug's cheek twitched, while Naomi stood frozen in place. What? Didn't you hear me? If you're not short on people, I could join in too. Are you taking the piss? The thug rolled up his sleeves, baring his teeth. "Kevin, just go. Don't worry about me." Naomi shed a few timely tears, looking like a delicate white flower swaying in the wind. "Who said I was worried about you?" I looked at her in genuine confusion. "You." The mask of deep sorrow gradually faded. Naomi adjusted her collar, finally unable to keep up the act. "Kevin, you're bloody mental." I curved my lips into a smile, a sweet facade hiding a venomous core. Just like in my previous life. In my past life, Naomi approached me at Mark's behest, offering comfort when I was down and solace when I was in pain. After I saved her from some thugs, we got to know each other and grew closer. But in the end, I was stabbed in the back and ruined. That day, Naomi and I were locked in the sports equipment room. She kept saying she was cold, and as she said it, she snuggled into my arms. When someone finally came, she cried to everyone, claiming I had tried to force myself on her. No matter how I tried to explain, no one believed me. My father was so angry he disowned me on the spot. Mark became the ultimate winner. "How did you know?" Naomi frowned, her cold tone tinged with confusion. "Next time, don't pick a cake from a chain store. They all taste the same." I glanced mockingly at the cake on the ground. She should at least try to make it believable. Naomi's face gradually turned red with shame and anger. "Do you know there are no CCTV cameras here? We could beat you to a pulp and no one would know." The thugs threatened as they stepped forward, surrounding me. "No cameras? Perfect." A figure darted out from the corner, landing a heavy punch on one thug's face, then delivering a powerful kick that sent another flying several meters. The two didn't even have time to groan before they were knocked out cold. The last one slumped to the ground, trembling and begging for mercy. In the blink of an eye, the troublemakers were cleared out. After earning my first pot of gold, the first thing I did was hire a bodyguard. After all, Mark had quite a few dirty tricks up his sleeve. "There are no cameras here. Anything could happen and no one would know." I threw their threat back at them. "I know who's behind you." Naomi interrupted me, her lips pale as she looked at me. "I won't come forward to identify Mark." She added reluctantly, "He's very careful. He hasn't left any evidence." I remained non-committal, saying coldly, "I want you to proceed with the original plan." "You know about that too?" Her face was full of shock and suspicion. Resentment, struggle, and other emotions flashed across her face, but ultimately turned to resignation when she met my determined gaze. "After it's done, you have to protect me. Deal." From then on, in the eyes of our classmates, Naomi and I grew closer. The sports equipment room incident occurred as scheduled. Just like in my previous life, the room was cramped and narrow. I lay on top of Naomi, waiting quietly for the people to come, catch us in the act. The clamor of voices grew louder, the lock clattered to the ground, and the rusty iron door creaked open. The sudden flood of light made me squint. My parents, Mark, Peter, several leaders from Listen College, and even Maria were there. Slap! A hand struck my face hard before I could even react. "Brother, how could you do such a thing?" Mark cried, seemingly heartbroken. Peter eagerly jumped in to accuse me, his eyes red with excitement. "Naomi told me before that you've been harassing her. Today you insisted on bringing her to get equipment, but it was all a ploy. After cursing my ancestors before, he'd been punished plenty at home. Now that he had a chance for revenge, he couldn't wait to lead the charge." Maria spat in disgust. "Rapist!" My father clenched his fist, but mindful of the people present, he ultimately didn't strike a second time. "Kevin, you've disappointed me terribly." My cheek throbbed with pain, the taste of blood filling my mouth. I stared at him unflinchingly and smiled. "I raped Naomi, then had someone lock the room so you could catch us." This plot was full of holes. Anyone with half a brain could see something was off. "Who told you to be so stupid?" My father's voice was full of nothing but disgust. I chuckled softly. Indeed, in both lives, this was an incredibly clumsy setup. He didn't care about truth or lies, only that I had disgraced the Gascoigne family name. To hell with their reputation. "Ha! I suppose the Gascoigne Group has already secured that city council land? Imagine if it got out that you have a son who's a rapist." I looked up, challengingly scanning Ralph Gascoigne's darkened face. "You wouldn't dare." "I wouldn't, but someone might. With so many competitors, there's always someone willing to risk it all for money." "What do you want?" £100,000 to sever our parent-child relationship." "You're not worthy." Maria Gascoigne shrieked, her face contorted. 200,000. "Kevin Gascoigne, you gutter rat." 300,000. "Bring pen and paper." Ralph Gascoigne's gaze was deep and emotionless. Quickly, someone brought pen and paper. In black and white, it was written that I had no further connection to the Gascoigne family, along with a check for £300,000. Both papers and the pen were tossed to the ground. "You have no more ties to the Gascoigne family. If I hear even a whisper of rumors." Humph. I picked up the check, lazily blowing off the dust. "MMM." From the corner, Naomi Quincy moaned softly, slowly regaining consciousness. "Naomi, are you all right? The Gascoigne family will certainly make this right," Mark Gascoigne said concernedly, helping Naomi up. Naomi clutched the coat draped over her shoulders, her eyes confused. "What do you mean?" Mark continued. "Don't be afraid. My brother, Kevin, will certainly be punished for his crime." "Crime? What crime?" Naomi's beautiful eyes darted around, looking at everyone in confusion. "Why are you playing dumb? Isn't it obvious that Kevin tried to force himself on you?" Maria interjected impatiently. "No, there must be a misunderstanding. Kevin did this to save me." Naomi's words were like water hitting hot oil, instantly stunning everyone. Mark's grip on Naomi's hand unconsciously tightened. "Ah, you're hurting me," Naomi cried out. As Mark apologetically loosened his grip, she took the opportunity to walk to my side and earnestly explained. "I came with Kevin to get some sports equipment, but I had an asthma attack. If Kevin hadn't unbuttoned my shirt to help me breathe, I would have died. He saved my life." The atmosphere was stagnant and eerie. Ralph Gascoigne's gaze swept over Naomi, then landed on me. He spoke stiffly. "Why didn't you explain earlier?" "There was no need." I waved the two papers in my hand, a check and a statement severing our relationship. "Mr. Gascoigne, no need to see you out." The air pressure dropped several degrees again. Ralph Gascoigne's eyes were like tempered steel. "Fine. Very well, Kevin. Let's see how you crawl back." The group arrived in a whirlwind and left just as hastily, leaving only Naomi standing nearby. "I really don't understand you. If you knew it was a trap, why did you fall into it? What if Mark really inherits the Gascoigne Group?" "When did I ever say I wanted to inherit the Gascoigne Group? From the beginning, I only wanted to bring it down." Naomi couldn't help but sigh. "I've put everything on the line for this. You'd better win. The look in Mark's eyes as he left. He wanted to tear her apart. The incident in the sports room was strictly suppressed by the school. Not a whisper leaked out. The teacher specially ordered me to rest in the afternoon. I took the £300,000 and my previous earnings and knocked on the door of a traditional English manor. The next day, I went to school as usual. Maria blocked the school gate with an apologetic-looking Mark standing behind her. Kevin, how dare you show your face at school? A worthless outcast from the Gascoigne family should crawl back to the gutter where you belong. Have you ever heard that every gap between teeth has its own bit of food stuck in it? I said casually. Maria's hand flew to her mouth, pulling out her pocket mirror to check. You dare lie to me? Where are the security guards? Are they dead? She yelled, throwing a tantrum. Edmund Yardley appeared just in time, discreetly glancing behind me, his expression serious. Miss Maria Gascoigne, Kevin is a student at Lisson College. Mind your words. Uncle Edmund? Maria instinctively threw a fit. Why him? Doesn't Lisson have asset requirements? A pauper like. I said, Kevin is a student at Lisson. Edmund cut her off mid-sentence. The onlookers erupted in a buzz of chatter. Edmund's implication was clear. My personal assets now fully met Lisson's admission requirements. How is that possible? I looked up, smiling at Maria's meltdown. £1 million was indeed enough. Young Master Gascoigne, you forgot something, said a middle-aged man who looked like a butler, getting out of a Rolls-Royce and respectfully handing me a food container. I see where your confidence comes from now. Found yourself a sugar daddy, have you? Maria, shut up. Mark yanked Maria behind him, his posture stiff as he said, Please excuse her. She's not thinking straight. I smiled, weighing the food container in my hand. It was heavy, substantial. Mr. Walton, please thank Mrs. Yardley for me. Mr. Walton's expression softened, and he nodded at me kindly. You're too kind. The master said you'll always be a friend of the Jenkin family. Mark's face grew even more sour, while Maria wore an expression of fury she dared not express. As I passed by the two, I paused and said in a leisurely tone, I don't make a habit of adopting random fathers. The Jenkin family, headed by old Mr. Arnold Jenkin, a retired figure from the center of power in London. The wealthy aren't always noble, but the noble can maintain their wealth. For the Gascoigne family, with their merchant background, the Jenkin group was an unattainable oak tree. Sure enough, as soon as I entered the classroom, quite a few people gathered around me. Even some of the rich kids, whose families were no less prominent than Gascoigne group, extended their olive branches. I mingled effortlessly, not shying away from mentioning my disownment by the Gascoigne family. That's your dad's, no, the Gascoigne's lack of vision. Indeed, Kevin, come over to my place sometime. Some were flattering, some were sycophantic, and of course some were resentful, like Peter Tench, who shrank in the corner, too scared to look at me. The day passed in this mix of genuine and superficial socializing. After school, I rubbed my sore shoulders and walked back to the newly bought flat nearby. After a moment's thought, I detoured to the back of the school to buy some pastries. Woof, woof, yelp. A pitiful dog's cry came from the park. I frowned and followed the sound. What are you doing? Under the shade of trees, Mark Gascoigne was stepping on a small terrier. The dog's limbs were unnaturally twisted, obviously broken by someone. I rushed over and pushed him away. Mark's bodyguards tried to intervene but were blocked by my own protection detail hidden nearby. The abused dog looked only 3 or 4 months old, trembling and whimpering, barely breathing. Hee. Ha ha. Kevin, you're indeed a lowly creature, fit to be with animals. Mark Gascoigne got up from the ground, staring at me maliciously. Why did you come back? Why didn't you die out there? I suppose I should thank them for giving you a good name, Simon Gascoigne. See, I've been remembered back, haven't I? Shut up, Arg. I held the dog with one arm, stepped forward, and kneed him in the waist, no longer looking at the person doubled over in pain. Just collecting some interest. At the veterinary hospital, The doctor worked for a full 3 hours to snatch a dog's life back from the brink of death. Luckily, it was brought in time. The limbs have been reset. Damn animal abusers. The nurse cursed for a good 15 minutes without repeating herself or using profanity. I waited a while longer until the little terrier woke up from the anesthesia. It licked my palm wetly, incredibly docile. I stroked its head soothingly, feeling a bit better. I'll call you Lucky. There was once another terrier that accompanied me for 7 years. I had saved it from drowning, and we had relied on each other to survive. When I was little in the orphanage and couldn't get enough to eat, it would bring me wild fruits every few days, and even catch fish from the river and rabbits from the hills. Its existence was one of the few bright spots in 14 gloomy years. In my previous life, after being expelled from the Gascoigne family, I couldn't continue my studies. The first job I found was taking care of stray dogs at a rescue center. Even after changing jobs later, I often went back to help. Would it be possible for you to look after it here for a while? I'll pay for the service. I inquired at the hospital reception. We don't offer that service here, but you can take it to the nearby rescue center. The lady there is a retired veterinarian. I considered for a moment, then agreed. For the near future, I would be very busy. Rather than finding someone random, it would be better to let professionals take care of it. After waiting another half-month and confirming Lucky's recovery, I took the dog and some money to the rescue center. The lady's name was Mrs. Lawson. After hearing the whole story, she cheerfully agreed to help. With everything settled, I threw myself wholeheartedly into the operation to bring down Gascoigne Group. It was time to close the net. The financial news changed daily. Gascoigne Group undertakes city government project. CEO Ralph Gascoigne states that the project is a matter of an entrepreneur's conscience and will definitely serve the public. Municipal project starts on schedule. High hopes from all sectors. Gascoigne Group partners suddenly sell shares. Big news incoming? Gascoigne Group in urgent refinancing. Stock prices fluctuate. Breaking. Reporter exposes Gascoigne Group's use of dual contracts, substandard building materials, and bribery of local officials. Government project urgently halted. Ralph Gascoigne taken away by police for investigation. I closed the news page and let out a long sigh. 3 months. Watched him build his tower, watched him entertain guests, watched his tower crumble. The day Ralph Gascoigne was released on bail, he called me dozens of times. I agreed to meet him to settle things once and for all. The atmosphere in the Gascoigne house was completely different from the day I came. So you know to crawl back. Ralph Gascoigne displayed his usual intimidating demeanor, making everyone feel uncomfortable. Shall I leave then? I paused, making as if to go. Stop right there, Ralph roared. My mother came over and grabbed my hand, trying to smooth things over. Kevin dear, your father just has a bit of a temper. Don't be cross with him. How have you been lately? You look thinner. She reached out to touch my face, but I turned away. If you have something to say, say it. Well, you've made connections with the Jenkin family, haven't you? I thought we could all go out for a meal together, to thank them properly for looking after you these past few weeks. I stared at her coldly until she lowered her hand awkwardly, unable to continue. Kevin Gascoigne, the Gascoigne Group's reputation affects us all. Don't you understand even that basic concept? Ralph barked harshly. You said it yourself. I have nothing to do with the Gascoigne family anymore, I replied. The Gascoignes raised you. No matter what, I'm still your father. I laughed at the shamelessness of this family. You raised me? Funny, I remember growing up in an orphanage. Or does a quick shag count as raising a child now? Kevin. I took a check from my pocket, wrote down a figure, and tossed both the paper and pen lightly to the floor. 310,000 pounds. I'm paying you back. Do you want interest too? Ralph's eyes bulged with rage, his fists shaking. The two who owe you for raising them are right there. Let them repay you properly. I nodded towards Mark and Maria, who looked like scared little chicks. Mr. Walton, let's go. Miles nodded respectfully and opened the front door for me. The air outside was fresh and calm. I closed my eyes and strode away confidently. The Gascoigne Group was in turmoil for over 2 weeks, with their stock prices plummeting. Mark and Maria withdrew from Lisson College. It was another week before I heard news of the Gascoignes again. You're saying Maria slept with Mark? I couldn't hide my surprise. Yeah. Ralph was trying to marry Maria off to some 40-something coal tycoon who's been divorced 7 times. The gossip held up 7 fingers, clearly shocked. But I never thought Maria would be bold enough to sleep with her own brother. I heard when they were caught, her legs were broken on the spot. I smirked, feeling only satisfaction. That idiot Maria probably thought sleeping with Mark would get her out of the arranged marriage. Young Mr. Gascoigne. Miles opened the car door for me. I waved goodbye to my friend and got into the car heading to the Jenkin estate. Their grounds were as rustic and understated as ever. Old Mr. Jenkin was wearing a tweed jacket, leisurely sipping his tea. You're here. Yes, Mr. Jenkin. Thank you for all your help these past weeks. If it weren't for borrowing the Jenkins' influence, things wouldn't have progressed so smoothly. Humph, who says it was for your sake? Ralph Gascoigne dared to use substandard materials for public works projects. Such a traitor to the country deserves to be punished by everyone. He won't last much longer. I took a sip of tea, smiling silently. Yes, a traitor indeed. The Gascoigne Group had used illegal means to win contracts, then used inferior materials to cut costs. In my past life, I'd accidentally discovered this and had been secretly gathering evidence. Unfortunately, I died in a car crash before I could do anything. There were rumors, of course, but the investigators sent to look into it also met with accidents on mountain roads. Mark killing me was likely just following Ralph's implied orders. All to protect the family. This time, the person in charge of investigating the corruption case happened to be named Jenkin. The Jenkin family needed to advance further and needed the corresponding achievements, so I handed them the knife to send the Gascoigne Group to hell. During this time, Ralph had stubbornly refused to confess, insisting it was all done by his subordinates. Although I had tampered with his computer when I visited the company last time and uncovered some evidence, the chain of proof was still incomplete. I look forward to hearing good news from you. Having finished my tea, I set down the cup. Mr. Jenkin, I'll be heading back now. I'll return the principal I borrowed from you in full. You rascal, where do you think you're going? Stay for dinner. Old Mr. Jenkin glared at me sternly, trying to look intimidating. Edmund's made a whole spread today. He's been going on about why you haven't been round. I laughed. This old man. Dinner was a jolly affair. I politely declined the offer to stay the night and decided to walk home to aid digestion. Buzz buzz. My phone vibrated twice. It was a volunteer from the animal shelter calling. Kevin, something seems wrong with the dogs at the shelter. Lucky's not eating or drinking either. He's been like that all afternoon. We can't reach Mrs. Lawson. Don't panic. I'm on my way now. I tried to reassure her. The young volunteer was prone to getting flustered in emergencies. When I arrived at the shelter, she was in tears. I don't know what happened. So many of the dogs are just. The dogs in the cages were lying listlessly on the ground, some with foam coming from their mouths. What did they eat? And nothing unusual. Oh, this afternoon someone kindly donated some premium dog food. You don't think? My heart clenched as a bad feeling washed over me. Mike, call the vet. Help her move the dogs to the yard. My bodyguard quickly sprang into action. I'm going to check on Lucky. Lucky was still recovering and had been placed in the medical room in the back. I walked down the path and pushed open the door. Lucky was lying weakly on his bed. Seeing me enter, he let out a low whimper. There was a rustling sound outside the door. Who's there? The wooden door slammed shut with a thud, followed by the sound of chains being wrapped around it. Gray-black smoke seeped through the cracks. I cursed under my breath and tried to ram the door open, but it wouldn't budge. The medical room was an old wooden structure, and the fire spread quickly. The thick smoke soon made it difficult to breathe. Cough, cough. I covered my mouth and nose, standing on tiptoes to reach the window. Whimper. From the corner came Lucky's feeble voice. Damn it. I swore, but turned back to pick him up. The moment I left the window, An old beam crashed down exactly where I had been standing. Dust billowed and sparks flew. If I hadn't gone back for Lucky, I'd likely be a bloody pulp by now. With no time for relief or fear, I clutched Lucky and scrambled out through the collapsed corner of the wall. Huff, huff. Standing in the open space, I panted heavily, the feeling of a narrow escape slowly sinking in. Headlights blazed from behind, revealing Maria Gascoigne's contorted face in the driver's seat. She stepped on the accelerator, her lips forming what looked like the words, "Die." The car sped towards us. Bang! Another vehicle darted out from the side, ramming Maria's car and pushing it towards the burning building. Her car rolled once before plunging into the inferno. "Are you all right?" A bodyguard leapt from the car, checking me over with concern. In the distance, the sirens of ambulances and fire engines grew louder. The chaotic night finally came to an end. Maria Gascoigne survived, but with severe burns covering her entire body. I kept vigil at the veterinary hospital. The rescue center had arrived just in time. The poison dogs were out of danger. Gascoigne Group declares bankruptcy. Ralph Gascoigne indicted on multiple charges, including bribery. The television was broadcasting news about the Gascoigne family as daylight began to break outside the window. Everything had settled. The police were still investigating Maria's arson and attempted murder, trying to uncover who was behind it all. I hadn't personally dealt with Mark Gascoigne. Sometimes, living can be more torturous than death. Although Ralph Gascoigne was locked up, the family's debts still weighed heavily upon them. Debt collectors hounded them relentlessly. My people kept me updated on Mark's situation until one day, the reports suddenly ceased. Mark Gascoigne had been arrested for intentional homicide. Through a friend's connections, I learned the details. Turned out that to repay debts, Ralph Gascoigne had not only used Maria as a marriage pawn but had also forced Mark to sell himself to older men. He'd been to the proctology department several times, eventually losing control of his bowels. The Gascoignes constantly threatened him with their parental kindness, finally driving him to the edge. He stabbed my mother to death, unplugged Maria's ventilator, and was caught by the police while on the run. I'm sure there are plenty inside who'd fancy his type. Take good care of him, I instructed my people with a smile. I patted Lucky's head. He had mostly recovered, his daily joy now chasing small animals on the street, though he didn't destroy the house anymore. After school, I was walking Lucky when we bumped into a blind fortune teller on the footbridge. The old man stroked his goatee, shaking his head mysteriously. "Young man, your dog has a special spirit. What, are you going to say it's some two-life destiny?" I moved to step around him, having no fondness for fortune tellers. No, no, no. It's a three-life connection. It's 3 lives, you're 2. The fortune teller chuckled madly. Who knows? Maybe in this life, it entered the animal realm to trade places with you. I paused, examining the fortune teller closely. Despite his white cane, his clothes were clean, without a single scuff mark. If so, that's not bad at all. The fortune teller nodded, smiling as he wandered off. Good deeds bring good rewards. Lucky was eyeing a bird on the roadside, eager to pounce. I tugged the leash and he immediately became obedient. "Come on, Lucky. Let's go home."